Reading through the Bible in a year, December 8th, 2nd Chronicles chapter 8, 3rd John, Habakkuk chapter 3, and Luke 22. Now it happened at the end of the 20 years in which Solomon had built the house of Yahweh and his own house, that he built the cities which Hiram had given him to settle the sons of Israel there. Then Solomon went to Hamath Zobah and overpowered it, and he built to Tadmor in the wilderness and all the storage cities which he had built in Hamath. He also built Upper Bethhoron and Lower Bethhoron, fortified the cities with walls, gates, and bars, and Baalath and the storage cities which Solomon had, and all the cities for his chariots and the cities for his horsemen, and all that Solomon desired to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and in all the land under his rule. As for the people who were left of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, who were not of Israel, namely, from their sons who were left after them in the land whom the sons of Israel had not consumed, from them Solomon raised up forced laborers to this day. But Solomon did not make slaves for his work from the sons of Israel, for they were men of war, his chief captains, and his chariot commanders, and his horsemen. These were the chief deputies of King Solomon, 250, who ruled over the people. Then Solomon brought Pharaoh's daughter up from the city of David to the house which he had built for her, for he said, "My wife shall not live in the house of David, king of Israel, because the places are holy where the ark of Yahweh has entered." Then Solomon offered burnt offerings to Yahweh on the altar of Yahweh, which he had built before the porch, and did so according to the daily rule, offering them up according to the commandment of Moses for the Sabbaths, the new moons, and the 3 annual feasts, the feast of unleavened bread, the feast of weeks, and the feast of booths, tents, or tabernacles. And according to the judgment of his father David, he caused the divisions of the priests to stand for their service, and the Levites for their responsibilities to raise up and minister before the priests according to the daily rule, and the gatekeepers by their divisions at every gate. For David, the man of God, had so commanded. And they did not turn away from the commandment of the king to the priests and Levites in any matter or concerning the treasuries. Thus all of the work of Solomon was carried out from the day of the foundation of the house of Yahweh until it was completed. So the house of Yahweh was finished. Then Solomon went to Ezion-Geber, and to Elath, and to the shore of the sea and the land of Edom. And Huram, by the hand of his servants, sent him ships and servants who knew the sea. And they went with Solomon's servants to Ophir, and took from there 450 talents of gold, and brought them to King Solomon. Still recovering. It's just a thing. All right, that is all the text for here. Let's move on to 3rd John. Let's go ahead and read the introduction. Third John supplements statements on Christian hospitality in 2nd John. It applauds a Christian named Gaius for living out the teachings of the apostles. He had welcomed traveling Christian missionaries into his home, while condemning Diotrephes, a selfish church leader who not only refused to help these itinerant godly teachers, but also had slandered and opposed those who disagreed with him. This book demonstrates that pride can divide Christians if they are not living by God's word. To avoid the dual dangers of false teaching and division within the church, believers should practice the dual virtues of love and discernment. The letter was probably written by the Apostle John in the late 1st century AD. Let's begin. the elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that in all respects you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. For I rejoiced greatly when brothers came and bore witness to your truth, that is, how you are walking in the truth. I have no greater joy than this, to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Beloved, you are acting faithfully in whatever work you do for the brothers, and are doing this, though they are strangers. And they bore witness to your love before the church. You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. For they went out for the sake of the name, capital N name, talking about Jesus, receiving nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore, we ought to support such men, so that we may be fellow workers with the truth. I wrote something to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first among them, does not welcome what we say. For this reason, if I come, I will bring to remembrance his deeds which he does, unjustly disparaging us with wicked words. And not satisfied with this, he himself does not welcome the brothers either. And he forbids those who want to do so, and puts them out of the church. Beloved, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. The one who does good is of God. The one who does evil has not seen God. Demetrius has received a good witness from everyone, and from the truth itself. And we add our witness, and you know that our witness is true. I had many things to write to you, but I am not willing to write them to you with pen and ink. But I hope to see you shortly, and we will speak face to face. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. Now Habakkuk chapter 3. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet, according to Shigionoth. O Yahweh, I have heard the report about you, and I fear. O Yahweh, revive your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make it known. In rage, remember compassion. God comes from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. Selah. His splendor covers the heavens, and the earth is full of his praise. His brightness is like the sunlight. He has rays flashing from his hand, and there is the hiding of his strength. Before him goes pestilence, and plague comes after him. He stood and measured out the earth. He looked and startled the nations. So the perpetual mountains were shattered. The ancient hills collapsed. His ways are everlasting. I saw the tents of Cushan under wickedness. The tent curtains of the land of Midian were trembling. Did Yahweh's fury burn against the rivers? Or was your anger against the rivers? Or was your wrath against the sea, that you rode on your horses and on your chariots of salvation? Your bow was made bare. Rods were sworn unto battle by word. Selah. You split the earth into rivers. The mountains saw you and writhed. The downpour of waters passed by. The deep gave forth its voice. It lifted high its hands. Sun and moon stood in their lofty places. They went away at the light of your arrows, at the brightness of your flashing spear. In indignation you marched through the earth. In anger you trampled the nations. You went forth for the salvation of your people, for salvation with your anointed. You crushed the head of the house of the wicked, to lay him bare from thigh to neck. Selah. You pierced with his own sharpened rods the head of his throngs. They stormed in to scatter us. Their exaltation was like those who devour the afflicted in secret. You tread on the sea with your horses, on the surge of many waters. I heard, and my inward parts trembled. At the sound, my lips tingled. Decay enters my bones, and in my place I tremble, because I must wait quietly for the day of distress, for the people to arise who will invade us. Though the fig tree should not blossom, and there be no produce on the vines, though the yield of the olive should fail, and the fields yield no food, though the flock should be cut off from the fold, and there be no cattle in the stalls, yet I will exalt Yahweh. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. Yahweh, the Lord, is my strength. He has set my feet like hinds' feet, and makes me tread on my high places. For the choir director on my stringed instruments. Move on now to Luke 22. Now, the feast of unleavened bread, which is called Passover, was drawing near. And the chief priests and the scribes were seeking how they might put him to death, for they were afraid of the people. And Satan entered into Judas, who was called Iscariot, who belonged to the number of the 12. And he went away and discussed with the chief priests and officers how he might betray him to them. They were glad and agreed to give him money. So he consented, and began seeking a good opportunity to betray Jesus to them apart from the crowd. Then came the first day of unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. And Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and prepare the Passover for us, so that we may eat it." And they said to him, "Where do you want us to prepare it?" And he said to them, "Behold, after you have entered the city, a man will meet you carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him to the house that he enters. And you shall say to the owner of that house, 'The teacher says to you, where is the guest room in which I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And he will show you a large, furnished upper room. Prepare it there." And they left and found everything just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover. And when the hour had come, he reclined at the table, and the apostles with him. And he said to them, "I have earnestly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I say to you, I shall never eat it again until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God." When he had taken a cup and given thanks, he said, "Take this and share it among yourselves. For I say to you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine from now on until the kingdom of God comes." When he had taken some bread and given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And in the same way, he took the cup after they had eaten, saying, "This cup which is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. But behold, the hand of the one betraying me is with me on the table. For indeed, the Son of Man is going as it has been determined. But woe to that man by whom he is betrayed." They began to argue amongst themselves which one of them it might be who was going to do this thing. There's a lot of really great notes on this section here. I would strongly recommend reading through them. Verse 24. And there arose also a dispute among them as to which one of them was regarded to be greatest. It's the same discussion we've talked about before, where they're expecting Jesus to become this conquering, ruling king, which he will, but not on this trip, where he's going to be this great political leader and ruler. He's going to overthrow all of the powers. That will happen. It does not happen here. And Jesus said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who have authority over them are called benefactors. But not so with you. Rather, the one who is the greatest among you must become like the youngest, and the leader like the servant. For who is greater, the one who reclines at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who reclines? But I am going among you as the one who serves. Now, you are those who have stood by me in my trials. And I grant to you a kingdom, just as my Father granted one to me, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded to sift all of you like wheat. But I have prayed earnestly for you, that your faith may not fail. And you, once you have returned, strengthen your brothers. But he said to him, Lord, with you I'm ready to go both to prison and to death. And he said, I say to you, Peter, the rooster will not crow today until you have denied 3 times that you know me. And he said he said to them, when I sent you out without money belt and bag and sandals, did you lack anything? They said, not a thing. And he said to them, but now, whoever has a money belt is to take it along. Likewise also a bag. And whoever has no sword should sell his garment and buy one. For I tell you that this which is written must be completed in me. And he was numbered with transgressors. For that which refers to me has its completion. And they said, Lord, look, here are 2 swords. And he said to them, it is enough. And he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives. And the disciples also followed him. Now, when he arrived at the place, he said to them, pray that you may not enter into temptation. And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw. And he knelt down and began to pray, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. Now an angel from heaven appeared to him, strengthening him. And being in agony, he was praying very fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling upon the ground. Didn't actually become blood. It's a statement. Read the note on it. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping from sorrow. He said to them, why are you sleeping? Rise up and pray that you may not enter into temptation. While he was still speaking, behold, a crowd came, and the one called Judas, one of the 12, was coming ahead of them, and he approached Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said to him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? Then those who saw him, we got making sure we don't lose the notes here. Then those who saw him, starting over. And when those around him saw what was going to happen, they said, Lord, shall we strike with the sword? And one of them struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his right ear. But Jesus answered and said, stop, no more of this. And he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests and the officers of the temple and the elders who had come against him, have you come out with swords and clubs as against a robber? While I was with you daily in the temple, you did not stretch out your hands against me. But this hour, the authority of darkness is yours. Now, having arrested him, they led him away and brought him to the house of the high priest. But Peter was following at a distance. And after they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter was sitting among them. And his servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the firelight, looking intently at him, said, This man was with him too. But he denied it, saying, But, woman, I do not know him. A little later, another saw him and said, You are one of them too. Peter said, Man, I am not. And after about an hour had passed, another man began to insist, saying, Certainly this man was with him too, for he is also a Galilean. But Peter said, Man, I do not know what you are talking about. Immediately, while he was still speaking, a rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had told him, Before a rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. He went out and cried bitterly. Now, the men who were holding Jesus in custody were mocking him while they were beating him. And they blindfolded him and were asking him, saying, Prophesy, who is the one who hit you? And they were saying many other things against him, blaspheming. As the day came, the Sanhedrin of elders of the people assembled, both chief priests and scribes, and they led Jesus away to their Sanhedrin, saying, "If you are the Christ, tell us." But he said to them, "If I tell you, you will not believe. And if I ask a question, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." And they all said, "Are you the Son of God then?" He said to them, "You yourselves say that I am." Then they said, "What further need do we have of testimony? For we have heard it we have heard it ourselves from his own mouth." That's all the text for today, and that's all the reading. I just said the same thing twice. That's all the text and also all of the notes. There we go. Again, still recovering. Yay. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. Behold, the word of the Lord.